Hello, everyone. Welcome to Vanished Chicagoland Stories, the podcast. I'm your host, Pete Stanis, and today's date is September 28th, 2021, and this is episode 63, season 3. And I have a special program today. We are celebrating a anniversary of a TV show, the 60th anniversary to be precise, and it's about the television series Hazel that starred Shirley Booth. And I expect to talk about her through the entire show. I might add a couple things as I go along. Right now, we're going to go into commercial. And this program is brought to you by Breakfast Squares of General Mills. And here's a commercial from the 1970s. Enjoy.
My appetite doesn't wake up till I'm on the job. Then I need my breakfast. So I eat breakfast squares.
I wake up starved, but late. With breakfast squares, I don't go hungry.
I just like a little something with my coffee, and breakfast squares is a little something, nourishing.
Breakfast Squares, a complete light meal in 2 frosted bars. 4 flavors, ready to eat.
Don't let a busy world beat you out of a good breakfast now that there's breakfast squares.
Okay, I'm back. I hope you enjoyed that commercial. I remember this breakfast brand of breakfast squares from General Mills. I used to eat them when I was as a kid in the 70s. I ate them, 7th or 8th grade, and in high school. They were very good. They came in 4 flavors: chocolate, butter pecan, cinnamon, and vanilla. And the cinnamon and the vanilla and the chocolate were in a variety pack. And if you listen to the commercial, there were 2 famous TV actors featured. The man that spoke, that was Larry Wilcox. He starred in the TV series Chips. And the lady at the end was Anne Morgan Gilbert, who played Millie Helper on the TV classic Dick Van Dyke Show. And I will discuss Dick Van Dyke Show's 60th anniversary this weekend because it debuted on, October 3rd, 1961. So that should be fun. Anyway, getting back to the show, I said earlier that we're going to talk about the 60th anniversary of the TV show Hazel. Now, you're asking yourself, why am I talking about this show? What does this have to do with Chicago? Well, a few things. One, it aired in Chicago. And a lot of people like me grew up watching the show. And it had a very strong impact on me because I loved it. And I still do to this day. And it debuted on September 28th, 1961, which is 60 years today, and ended at April 11th, 1966. Ran for 5 years. First 4 seasons was on NBC, on Channel 5. It was WMBQB. That's what it was called. That was the call letters at the time for Channel 5. And then the last season aired on WGN-TV Channel 2 on CBS. And the first season aired in black and white, except for one episode where they were when Hazel and Mr. Baxter, Mr. B, were shopping for a television set, and she wanted a color television set, and that was the only color episode for the first season. Seasons 2 and 5 were all broadcast in color, and this was based on a single panel comic strip of the same name, but his name was Ted Key. He was a cartoonist, and he worked in it. He submitted it to the Saturday Evening Post, and that was it launched in 1943, and then let's see, when the magazine ceased publication in 1969, the cartoon got picked up for daily newspaper syndication of the same year, and then it ran into newspapers until 2008. And but they kept reprinting, and there was some books published. I've read a few of the cartoons. They're very entertaining. They had most of the cast members. And they added a couple. There was Katie Baxter, adopted younger child, and then they had two cats, Mostly and Tutan. But Smiley the dog, they had a dog named Smiley, but he was in the show, so that's good. Anyway, excuse me. The reason I said before, this is one of my favorite shows, and it debuted in syndication on September 9th, 1968. On WGN-TV Channel 9, and it aired on 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And right after Bozo's Circus, another favorite of mine I've mentioned many times. And when I was in kindergarten, I went to Bradwell's school in the South Shore neighborhood, and I used to come home right around the time Bozo started. I had a half a day. I only went there for a few months. Then we moved to Roseland after that. I came home, had lunch, and then I watched Bozo. And then I stayed after the show. And then Hazel came on, and I started watching, and I got hooked. Oh, it was wonderful. Wonderful to see that, And the cast was Shirley Booth as Hazel, Don DeFore as George Baxter, Whitney Blake as Dorothy Baxter, and Bobby Buntrock as Harold. And they had an interesting cast. They had semi-regulars. They had Barney Hatfield, the postman, Mitch Brady, the taxi driver, and Rosie Hammaker, which was Hazel's friend. She was also a maid. And one of my favorites was George Baxter's sister, Deirdre. And she was played by Kathy Lewis, and she was hilarious. She was the meanest woman you ever saw. And she always put down Hazel. And Hazel drove her crazy. And there were a few episodes that she did that. One of my favorite episodes was where Deirdre auditioned for a role as a maid in a play. And the director suggested that Hazel give her points. So Deirdre dressed up as a maid, and Hazel, showed her around, and they did her housework. And there was one scene where Deirdre came to the house, and she wanted to sit down, and Hazel says, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." And Deirdre said, "Why?" "Because I just painted the patio chairs," and she almost sat down with her fur coat. she got pissed. So that was I watched that scene a lot of times. It's hilarious. So it was a funny show. I'll give you a little background on the actors. There was Shirley Booth. She was a stage actress mostly, and then she was she acted on radio, and she didn't do many movies. Later on, she did. There was one famous movie she did. It was called "Come Back, Little Sheba." That was in 1952. That was from the stage play. She acted and performed for many years, and it won her an Oscar. And good for her. She was brilliant. I have the movie on DVD. I watch it all the time. And her husband was played by Burt Lancaster, but he did not play in the stage version. It was, I think his name was Cecil Kellaway. No, Sidney Blackmore or something. I forgot his name. And and then she was approached for the role of Hazel, and she accepted. And I heard it made her very wealthy, because she had a percentage of the show. And let's see, and then she played the role for 5 years, and then when it was on CBS, they asked her to continue, and she said, "No, I don't want to do it anymore." I think the reason is that she was sick. She had rheumatism, and she couldn't handle the long hours, so she quit. And then she did a few more roles. Then she retired, moved to Massachusetts, Cape Cod area, and then she died in 1992. And she was 92 years old, I think, or 90. No, she wasn't 92. I'm sorry. I don't know how old she was. I can find out how old she was. She was, 94. Yeah, so she lived a long life. God bless her. The other actress was Don DeFore. He played Mr. B. and he was a lawyer. And Hazel used to drive him crazy. She always interfered, tell him what to do. Trying to get him on a diet all the time, and he would get frustrated, and then he threatened to fire her all the time, but he never did because he loved her, and she was wonderful. And so he was. Then there was Dorothy Missy, played by Whitney Blake, which is Meredith Baxter's mother, and she acted in movies, television, as is Don DeFore. He was in a lot of movies. Oh, a lot of movies. 30s and the 40s and the 50s. And Whitney Blake played Dorothy Baxter. She was an interior decorator. And Hazel, in her character, she knew Hazel when she was 14. And because when they take care of her family. And then there was Harold, played by Bobby Buntrock. And, he was a cute kid, but he did a couple did some acting roles. I remember seeing him in Mr. Ed, and the last role he did was The Virginian. It was a TV western, and then he died. I think 1974. Excuse me. Yeah, and he was in a car, and the car. I think the car went over veered off a bridge, and it was under construction, and then he fell in the creek and he drowned, and it was sad. And he was 21 years old, and that's happened in Keystone, South Dakota. That's horrible what happened to him, and he was the first cast member that passed away, and before the adults, and it was terrible like that. And so let's see what else. And then there were other characters I mentioned. There was Rosie the maid. That was Hazel's friend. There was Deirdre Thompson, which is George's sister, with her husband Harry. There were the neighbors, Herbert and Harriet Johnson. They were kind of daffy. They weren't like space cadets, but they were endearing people, very wealthy, but they couldn't handle, they couldn't function simple things in the house. They didn't cook. They didn't do a lot of things. Whenever there was a crisis or they were in trouble, they always call Hazel, and she ran over there and helped them. She didn't mind, because that's how she was. Very helpful person. Another character was Harvey Griffin, played by Howard Smith. That was the actor's name. And he was a boisterous, blustery steamroller. Very bossy, but he was a good client of George Baxter. And he always came for dinner. I think he was the biggest moocher I ever saw in my life. He's, and a big glutton too. And he enjoyed Hazel's company, and Hazel liked him too. But he was too bossy when he came to the house. He ran their house like a corporation. That's how it was. And so that was fine. It was hilarious. And then, all right, I'm going to talk about the 5th season in a moment. Right now, I'm going to play the theme song of the show. And this is from the 3rd season from 1963. They change theme songs every year. Season 1, season 2, season 3, etc. They had a different theme song. So here is what I said before. The theme song from season 3 of Hazel. Here we go. Okay, I'm back. I hope you enjoyed the catchy theme song of Hazel. All of them are. Each theme song from each season is very catchy. Sometimes you can't get them out of your head. Okay, back to the show. I'm going to talk about the final season of the show when it moved from NBC to CBS, and Don DeFore and Whitney Blake did not appear. There was, I think, it was like a budget cuts, and also to appeal to a younger audience. I don't understand that, And so they were dropped, and they brought in a new family. So they moved. They went to Saudi Arabia. I don't know why. I think Mr. Griffin had something to do with it. So Shirley Booth and Bobby Buntrock remained on the show, and they moved into another family. And they moved in with George's younger brother, Steve, his name played by Ray Fulmer, and he was a real estate agent, and his wife Barbara, played by Lynn Borden, and their daughter Susie, played by Julia Benjamin, which I am friends with her on Facebook, and she's a lovely lady, very nice lady. And the reason is that I have a Facebook page of Hazel. It's called Hazel. Ain't it a doozy? Ain't it a doozy page? Because she used to say that a lot. Ain't it, you're a doozy? So she saw this page and she liked it, and she told me. And then we've talked. We communicated back and forth once in a while. And also added to the cast was Ann Jillian, the actress who is from Chicago, and she was a teenager on the show. She's famous for her own series "It's a Living" in the 1980s. So, and she was there for 1 year. At the last year of that, she played the secretary of Steve Baxter. So you didn't see most of the other supporting characters. Maybe Rosie appeared maybe once or twice, but Deirdre appeared with her husband. She was there, so that made it enjoyable. A lot of people complained and they criticized about the last season because George and Dorothy were missing, and they disliked the season 5, that is. It was fine. I liked it. It was, but it wasn't the same. But I was hoping it would be continued. It would continue that, but it didn't happen. And let's see what else. And the funny thing, here's something trivia. The house that the Baxters lived, they used that for several Three Stooges movies and other TV shows in the 60s, like Bewitched, Gidget, the Donna Reed Show. They used the same, and Dennis the Menace. So they used that. And their main sponsor of the show was the Ford Motor Company. And there's a TV commercial on YouTube where Hazel is riding an exercise bicycle. She gets off the bike and she talks about her new Ford car. Yeah, it's kind of cool seeing that. And let's see. And Shirley Booth won 2 Emmy Awards for her role. That's quite an accomplishment. And so getting back to the Chicago connection, it aired, like I said before, it aired right after Bros' Circus at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It changed time slots in the late 60s and early 70s, and then it disappeared from syndication. I don't know where it went. And then when I was in 7th grade, I think 7th grade, no, excuse me, 8th grade, I found out that Hazel will be brought back on the air on WSNS Channel 44, and I was excited because it wasn't shown in syndication much in the 70s. And then when the announcement came to be, I was excited. So it started on September 1976. It aired on 5:30 in the afternoon, right after My Favorite Martian. And I remember the promos, watching about the TV show and others like that aired on Channel 4, like Superman, Leave It to Beaver. There was My Favorite Martian, Get Smart, other TV shows like that. It was a great channel. And then it aired for a couple of years on Channel 44 and then disappeared. It aired in the 80s a little while, and then it was gone mostly in the 1980s. I didn't see it until when I got cable. And one of the cable channels that we got was WOR, and that was Channel 9 in New York, or is it New Jersey? Yes, Secaucus, New Jersey, but it was in the New York area, and there was Hazel, and I watched that, and so that was fun to watch. And then it disappeared again. Then in 2006, they announced that Hazel would be released on DVD for the first time, and I was excited. Oh, when I saw the announcement on the website, TV shows on DVD.com, and it was distributed from the Shout Factory company. And it was released on August 1st, 2006, and I was excited because I rarely saw the first season. It was mostly black and white, so I was excited. And the moment it was they hit the stores, I raced and got it. But then I was expected to wait for the rest of the seasons to be released, but it took a long time, because I think it was rights. It was under released by Sony Television, but I don't know. There was some goofiness going back in something going on in the offices. I don't know why it was licensed. So Shout Factory acquired the series from under license from Sony. They probably worked that out with lawyers and all that gobbledygook. Okay. Anyway, so the second season was released February 21st, 2012, and I was excited because that was the first color season. And then after that, it released in May of the same year and in December. So it was the second, the third, and the fourth. And then we were waiting on the fifth that a lot of people, had to complain about like that, but it's still a good show. And finally, it was released 2 years later, almost like a year and a half, on January 14th, 2014, which was great. And now I bought all of them, and I have them at home, and I watch it all the time. And it's a great show. It's wonderful. It reminds me like watching the reruns on Channel 9 when I was very little. And so that's great. Like that. And I know it's a strange topic for me to talk about on this episode. It's not Chicago. It has nothing to do with Chicago. It's sort of related, but it's one of my favorite shows. My favorite show of all time is I Love Lucy. Second is Rowan Martin's Laugh-In. Third is Batman, from the 60s, and Hazel, and the Honeymooners, and the Brady Bunch. And there were there's other TV shows I love, but those were like the top 5, 6, whatever. And then, so also I want to talk about something else. There were other TV shows that debuted in 1961. I'll go very quickly. There was The Defenders that starred Robert Reed, E.G. Marshall. There was Top Cat. He debuted a day before Hazel. That was the anime series. I used to like that. Let's see what else. And coming up is the Dick Van Dyke Show, and I will discuss that on the next episode this weekend. It'll be the 60th anniversary, and I will talk about my memories of that because it aired on WGN Channel 9 during the 70s at 6:30 p.m. I used to watch it after dinner. Oh, wonderful show. Okay. So that'll be all for today. And then, we're still celebrating Bozo Circus Month for September. It's almost ending in a couple of days. I wrote a story on my blog. You can find it on vanishchicagoland.blog. And I have a couple more photos I will post on Facebook, including one I just recently found. So you would just look out for that one. You can listen to my podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Breaker, Amazon Music. Hopefully, I submitted it to Pandora. So hopefully, I'll get that. And then Audacity. I don't know how I pronounce it right. So you can listen on any apps that have podcasts. Also, it's I will upload the podcast episode on my blog, vanishchicagoland.blog, and also on my YouTube channel, under Vanished Chicagoland Stories. Okay. So this is Pete Castanes with, I'm your host of Vanished Chicagoland Stories, the podcast. This is episode 63, season 3. And I hope you have a wonderful day today. And bye-bye for now for me. And here's Ray Rayner saying bye-bye for now. Take care, everybody. So long.
We have to go. Bye, bye, bye.